Yauco, Puerto Rico, back in the late 50s, 1956. And my mother was 16 years old and my father was 19 when they had me. And they came to New York in the late 50s. I did initially the beginning of my elementary school years in Puerto Rico, and then I went to school in New York. My mother was a housewife, my father was a cabinet maker. And today he owns his own kitchen cabinet factory in Puerto Rico. But I grew up in the South Bronx. That's where I grew up. And I went to school, junior high school in the South Bronx. I went to Aviation High School in Queens. And then I attended City College of New York in Harlem, in 131st Street and Combin Avenue. When I was in college, my best friend who went to high school with me had joined the Army ROTC program at Fordham University. And he recruited me to come into and join the ROTC program. Probably the best decision I've ever made. Not only was I going to college, but also I was taking this leadership course to be an officer in the United States Army. And in 1978, when I graduated from CCNY, I also received my commission through the Fordham ROTC program. And I joined the Army in 1978 and been in the Army ever since. When I was in college, my best friend who went to high school with me had joined the Army ROTC program at Fordham University. And he recruited me to come into and join the ROTC program. Probably the best decision I've ever made. Not only was I going to college, but also I was taking this leadership course to be an officer in the United States Army. And in 1978, when I graduated from CCNY, I also received my commission through the Fordham ROTC program. And I joined the Army in 1978 and been in the Army ever since. Growing up in New York City is like getting two educations in one. You get to learn from the streets, you get to learn from the other cultures and diversified groups in the city. And most importantly, you get to learn things very quickly, because in New York everything is fast. That is an advantage that folks from New York City enjoy and also take advantage of as far as dealing in their daily lives. I never thought that I would make the Army a career. And I came in 1978 and was lucky to be assigned to Fort Bragg, North Carolina as my first assignment. And Fort Bragg is a great place to be a soldier. And got to meet a lot of folks there from all walks of life, coming together as a team to do great things for our great nation. Got to meet a lot of Puerto Ricans at Fort Bragg also, great soldiers doing great things. And I was very shocked that the amount of Puerto Rican soldiers that were there among the rest of the soldiers at Fort Bragg. Then from there I went to Korea for 1 year. Between Fort Bragg and Korea I got married. Left my wife in New York City while I went to Korea. Served 1 year there with the 2nd Infantry Division. And then from there I came back and I was stationed at home at Fort Hamilton, New York, where I was able to work at the MEP station. That's where they process the individual enlisted in the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, and the other services. I got to live in New York and be with my family for 3 years. At that time I thought it was about getting out of the Army and staying in New York City, but a good friend of mine convinced me that I should stay and continue on. And from there I went to Panama, down with where Noriega was in charge. And I spent 2 years there with the El Comando Sur, the Southcom, working there in the headquarters, which was responsible for overseeing all the military operations and political operations in Central South America. After that, I was assigned to the Washington, D.C. area, to the Personnel Center, the Army Personnel Center, where you assign individual soldiers to different assignments throughout the United States and the rest of the world. After that, I was assigned also to the Pentagon for 1 year, working in the Office of Secretary of Defense as a OSD fellow. And then from there, I went to school at the Command General Staff College in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. From there, I went to Fort Ord, California, where I spent 2 years. After spending 2 years there, I returned back to the D.C. area, again to the Army Personnel Center. And then after completing a 2-year tour there, I was stationed at Fort Drum, New York, upstate New York, Watertown, New York, as the Assistant Chief of Staff G1, responsible for all personnel matters in support of the Commanding General and the 10th Mountain Division. After serving there for 15 months, I had the opportunity to be selected for battalion command, one key position within the Army. And I got the opportunity to serve as a battalion commander in Germany, where I served there for 2 years as a battalion commander. And while there, I got to deploy to Bosnia and Herzegovina for 10 months in support of the peacekeeping operations there. After completing that tour, I stayed one more year in Germany before returning back to the States to serve, to attend the Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. After that, I got the opportunity to go down to San Antonio, Texas to serve with Cadet Command and be a brigade commander in recruiting young men and women to join the ROTC program, just like I started, and become Army officers. Today, I'm stationed at Fort Monroe, Virginia, as the Chief of Staff of Cadet Command, responsible for assisting our Commanding General in the recruiting retention efforts of students to be officers in the Army. You know, Puerto Rico is a small island, but have produced so many wonderful and great people throughout the history. It's incredible. And we are in every walk of life, you know, whether they're in the movies, whether they're in the politics, whether they're in the business, whether they're in the law. I mean, if you look at any profession, you will always find a Puerto Rican who has been very, very successful in that career or that profession. And they're very proud. And what they do is, not only do they do a very good job in what they're doing, because they try to do their best, but they represent not only the island, but themselves and the profession that they represent. And they do it in such a way that, that it attracts other Puerto Ricans. Because when you're standing at the bottom and you look to the top and you see somebody there who's been successful, there's hope for those individuals. And what Puerto Ricans have done throughout the years, not only set a good example in what they do, but also help others and motivate others to pursue those endeavors and do great things for not only the United States, but also Puerto Rico. Probably my greatest accomplishment has been probably being selected to be a battalion commander in the Army. First, when you get to be a battalion commander and get selected by a board and get to lead soldiers, it's probably the best experience and the best privilege that an Army officer could have. Not everyone gets to be selected for battalion command, that's the first thing. And if you're successful, there are other opportunities that come about. But probably that has to be probably my highlight of this day. The second probably was being selected as the personnel officer or the Assistant Chief of Staff G1 of a major division in the Army, the 10 Mountain Division at Fort Drum. That was a key accomplishment that I had the opportunity to be selected to serve in that key position. There's only 10 of those type of positions in the Army, and I was one of those that was selected back in the mid-90s. And then being able to be selected to attend the Army War College, where successful senior leaders get to attend. That was an experience year where I was also awarded a master's degree in strategic studies from the Army War College at Carlisle Barracks. The idea of learning about strategic dealings at the high level of the Department of Defense, Department of the Army, sharing ideas and talking to other fellow officers during that year is an invaluable experience, and I'm very proud of that selection. So being a battalion commander, being a G1 of a division, and being selected for the Army War College, probably some of the highlights. And right now, being selected to be the Chief of Staff for Cadet Command since this past summer. The level of responsibility that had been bestowed on me and be given the opportunity to serve, it's also a great achievement. And I'm very thankful to a lot of folks throughout my military career who have helped me get to where I am today. Like I said before, people, you know, the Army is people, and we have some great folks doing great things. And I've had some mentors along the way who have guided me and advised me in the right way, and I'm very grateful to them for everything they have done for me today.